Okay, good afternoon. Let's get started. Am I audible? See my
Audible,
slides?
sir.
Okay. So, morning we just got an idea of what knowledge systems are and more specifically what IKS is. What we need to look at now is we saw that about 2000 years back, India was the richest part of the world, and it continued for almost 1200 years after that. So from around 12th century, it started declining, became very bad by 17th century, and it practically collapsed by the time we got our independence. So all that wealth could not have been manufactured. It had to be created through hard work and intelligence, which is really what it was. India was the most skilled nation on earth for 1500 years. And we lost that skill because the Britishers converted a industrial society to an agricultural society. In agricultural society, we all live. Occasionally, there are famine and flood, but nobody prospers. Agriculture is not a economically very rewarding activity. It is an essential activity for the survival of society. So, an industrial nation became an agricultural nation, and we became really poor. And now, I think in the last 10-15 years, there is particularly the yesterday's budget. Indirectly, yesterday's budget says all of you start manufacturing. That's what. So, industry is what drives economy. We'll get back to that and see how is it that things were so good then, and definitely it is not same what it is today. So we saw that all IKS have built themselves on native indigenous system. Consolidation and maturity into codified knowledge system, like what we saw now in the morning, happened because of people settling down. It's called the first urbanization. Okay. So this happened between 8 and 10,000 years, up to 6,000 years back. Slowly people started settling down at one place. So from a hunter-gatherer society, people started becoming what one calls early settlement, what you call villages today. So villages grew to towns and cities, and most of the kingdoms historically were city-states, like Singapore. Singapore today is a city-state. It is not a country. It is a city, but it is also a country. So it used to be like that before. Okay. So a lot of city-states. And the various changes in knowledge system came about because of colonial era, where Europeans went everywhere where they were not localites. They took their own culture, mostly bad, some good, imposed on it, distorted the polity, destroyed the culture. And today what you see is a blended culture that you see in most places. The advantage the Western knowledge system had was after the colonization, they greatly advanced with modern science and technology, because modern science and technology related to industry and products. So this presentation looks at why do knowledge systems thrive, or why are certain knowledge systems popular? Why does the Western knowledge system dominate now, and what are its historical roots? What is excellence in knowledge system or excellence through knowledge system? Does indeed endorse its acceptance? Why will people accept only when things are nice with that? or it is comforting to them, or whether it is helpful to them. Comfort and quality of life, the tenets or components of knowledge system provide to its people and culture, seem to endorse its popularity and growth. Why does everybody want to go to US? The only advantage people have going to US is the US is a far more free country than other countries are. So you have a lot of undeclared freedom. You also have a lot of declared restrictions. So as long as you conform to restricted limits, the other things are left to you. I mean, you want to open a factory, you want to buy land, all this is very easy. Whereas here, to buy land and open a factory is so difficult that by the time the factory is open, the owner is dead. So that's why no production happens. Or if you still start producing, you are harassed so badly by the bureaucracy that finally you feel that it's not worth doing. So that's the reason why we need to reform very badly in these sectors. It's also quite common to see cases of imposed knowledge system. People impose their knowledge system, which neither has comfort nor quality of life. We have seen this with ISIS. What is Taliban doing in Afghanistan now? What is Boko Haram doing in Nigeria? What is happening in North Korea? What is happening in our own neighborhood of Thailand, Burma, and Cambodia, which is called the Golden Triangle. Most of you are familiar with what has happened in Syria. They went through a civil war. Even then, things have not stabilized. Iraq went through that. Now Iran, we don't know. And it could go into that any moment. Okay? So the question is, will any knowledge system finally bring peace, prosperity, and happiness to all its proponents? Right? How does it do? Through its tenets, attributes, and components, a sense of peace, prosperity, and happiness to all who live by or with it, and also those around who may not subscribe to it. For example, I may not believe in a knowledge system. Doesn't mean that I must become uncomfortable, deprive me of my food and livelihood, like what is happening in Bangladesh now. So, a good knowledge system not only assists people who believe in it, it will not interfere with people who don't believe in it. This is done by broadly achieving excellence, high degree of utility, very fair justice system, tremendous amount of equity, quality in every facet of life, and equality of all citizens. This is how the knowledge system should be doing. Each of it is a separate seminar. So I will only look at excellence. So we will see what is excellent in Indian knowledge system and what excellence helped India achieve substantial economic dominance for about 1,500 years. So why does Western knowledge system now dominate? There are four factors that led to the dominance of Western knowledge system. The first is the Greco-Roman basis for modern science, technology, and philosophy. For example, even now you study Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. Many of us in science look at Archimedes' results, Pythagoras' theorem. It's a little over 2,500 years, but we still use it. The second was the state sponsorship of Christian philosophy, followed and aided by wars and colonization. So the church played the role of what Mauryan Empire did to Buddhism. One of the reasons Buddhism spread a lot is the Mauryan Empire almost declared it. They didn't oppose other things, but they almost declared it as a state religion or a state philosophy. Same thing happened. Romans in around 320 AD, Emperor Constance declared Rome's state's religion to be Christianity. So in 2000 years, when the state itself support, like what is North Korea? The whole state supports Kim Jong, right? So that was aided by wars and colonization, which was extremely brutal and violent. the maturity, expansion, and depth provided to modern science and technology through Renaissance period. See, all this happened after Galileo. Till then, Europe people did not eat properly, dress properly. They did not know how to eat properly. They did not have enough to eat properly. Forget about dress. There was no architecture. They were living so crude compared to people in the Middle East and more so in India and Southeast Asia. Lastly, development and manufacture of numerous gadget services in field of manufacturing, finance, healthcare, and communication during the last 300 years. The post-industrial revolution completely shifted the economy from skill to manufacturing. And of course, the world also became very big. So this is Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. The Aristotle's logic, which still dominates the Western system. Then this is Euclid's book. There are 16 books. One of them is lost. These are the 15 books of Euclid. And we still use this idea of triangle, chord, diameter, all that. Eventually, post-Renaissance, dominated by Leibniz and Newton, followed by Euler, did the entire mathematics and physics that we use today. To the point by beginning of 19th century, you can see people starting adding devices to ideas of mathematics, explaining working of devices and gadgets using maths, physics, chemistry, and biology, explaining earthly and cosmic physical phenomena in mathematical terms like Big Bang and other things, and using mathematics statistics to explain, infer, manipulate, to obtain new ideas like radar and anti-aircraft guns. You will see how quickly it has progressed. This is a World War I tank where you see all the soldiers on the top of it. This is a similar tank warfare in Iraq, but commander is not there. Commander is in Texas in air-conditioned room directing the war through a satellite. Similarly, you will see in 100 years how much it has changed. This is the first photograph of William Röntgen with his X-ray. In 100 years, you now have robot-assisted surgery. The surgeon is here operating a robot. The patient is here. So in 100 years, 150 years, Western science simply exploded. And that has resulted in all the things that we now follow, use, depend on whatever. Okay. Like, for example, you see, in 200 years, the Fourier equation has become the CT scanner. And people who invented the internet, just about 30 years before that, this man gave all the mathematics for internet, which is queuing system. And lately, all of you may not be aware, but all of you are surviving today because all of you have taken COVID vaccine. What is interesting is COVID vaccine was developed within 1 year by using artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques, which is today dominating. So a normal vaccine will take 6 to 8 years, but this was done with the help of AI and machine learning. So let's go back and see what is it that we did all these years. We couldn't have kept quiet. We did many interesting things. So the first thing is going to the history of the universe. Modern science, when I say modern science, Western knowledge system has the capacity to both look forward and backward. They are on a micro scale through microscope and a cosmic scale through telescope. They can look outside the body with a stethoscope and inside the body with a CT scanner. They have sent people inside the earth, under the sea, and to moon. They have also caused irreparable damage, caused the climate issue, and have been responsible for more collateral damage than World War II. There is more wealth now in the society, but there is also more inequality. They also created the COVID-19 virus in the lab. Okay. So this is Big Bang, supposedly 15 billion years back. And then today's situation is this. So subatomic particles, and then they condensed into galaxies, and then the planets came, and then the life came on Earth. So the model for Big Bang, there are two models. One says Big Bang occurred and it kept expanding forever. The other says the Big Bang occurs, it expands and starts shrinking, what one calls the big crunch, leading to another. So the cyclic nature of Big Bang, explosion, expansion, again big crunch, again another explosion. This cyclic nature is about the most accepted theory today. But what is interesting is all the major astrophysicists, starting from Carl Sagan, Niels Bohr, Oppenheimer, all of them, the Western knowledge system, they have explicitly stated that the Indian or the Hindu knowledge system is the only system that has correctly identified cyclic nature, Big Bang followed by Big Crunch, and its time scale correctly. So almost 1,000 years before Western knowledge system identified cyclic nature and time scale of universe, IKS had identified it correctly, but we had not measured it in scientific terms like with instruments. We have been very poor with measurements, like Large Hadron Collider, LIGO Observatory, James Webb Telescope. So this is what makes Western science dominate, because they are not only able to measure, they can allow others to measure and get the same answer. So they are far more objective. This has helped them. Okay. But we had correctly got the idea. It's just that we didn't move further. You also see it in others. The other excellence of any knowledge system is architecture. Every society, civilization brings. This is the famous Egyptian architecture. Pyramids are symbolic, but these temples they built is far more impressive than the pyramids. This is the Great Wall of China. This is Greek architecture, very beautiful and artistic. This is a Roman architecture, which is still prevailing today. And other societies, for example, this is the Incas and Aztecs of Central America. This is the architecture of a very famous place called Machu Picchu in South America. Okay? So all had this. Every civilization produces its own architecture from its knowledge system. But compared to that, look at Indian architecture. This is an aerial view of how one sees all the Ajanta caves. Close to it, it looks like this. Inside, it looks like this, one of the caves. And the impressive architecture, starting from 550 C, that is 1,700 years back, all the way to 950 in 3 stages. What's very interesting is you will see some painting here. These are oil paintings. The oil painting in Europe was done during Renaissance, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci and all that. So Europe did oil paintings 1,000 years after Indians had done. So we are one of the world's originators of oil painting. Not only that, impressive architecture, including probably the world's greatest architecture. People who have not seen, I request you, now that you are in India, please take time to see, because this is not in the 7 wonders of the world, because this is wonder of all the 7 wonders. It's unbelievable because it is carved out of a hillock, and it is architecture which is carved upside down because there was no foundation first. First, the Gopura was carved out and the rest of the building carved out. So there was no laying of foundation. And these foundations, these false foundations, these are actually the whole rock as such. And they are impressive. Look at the size. These are humans, and symbolically the elephants are holding the temple. So a foundation, a false foundation made out of rock elephants, an unbelievable size. This is both artistic and impressive, done by Rashtrakutas. And they are also very delicate. So as you climb the stairs, you will see Ramayana and Mahabharata etched out in miniature, this thing. More so, if you look at art on stone, it's hard to beat the Hoysalas. And this is a beautiful pillar in one of the most artistic pillars of temples in the world. This is in Bhoganandishwara in Nandi Hills. All people know about the impressive Brihadeshwara temple in Tanjavur. I mean, really on scale, it's, in fact, I think Tamil Nadu builds the largest and the grandest temples. So we have worked with soft stone, hard stone, granite, soapstone, but all kinds of things. But people miss out something interesting. Those who travel to Kerala, they all go to Trivandrum, they go to Kanyakumari. But while traveling between Trivandrum and Kanyakumari, don't miss this place. There's a small town called Padmanabhapura, where the world's second largest wooden palace is there. This is also due to Travancore Maharajas. And the first largest wooden palace in the world is in Tokyo, where the present emperor of Japan lives. But this is the second largest wooden palace. So we have been working with wood, soft stone, hard stone, all kinds of material. And finally, if you think music can be made out of stone, that you find it in Hampi. Unbelievable. And at that time, it also was the richest city in the world. I mean, that kind of wealth, what is written in by foreign travelers, is unbelievable, the amount of wealth it was there. So this is the Virupaksha temple. So in terms of architecture, it's very difficult to defeat the knowledge of architecture which we had. Okay. The third important thing we did was, we did our own maths like the Greeks did, Mesopotamians did, Chinese did, Egyptians did. We also did, but we did the most important thing. We were the people who introduced the decimal system to the world by inventing the idea of a positional zero. It is wrongly called Arabic numerical system, which was just a copy in Persian of the Indian numerical system. This copy translate also worked in other disciplines of knowledge, eventually assisted for Renaissance to happen in southern Italy, southern Europe, only in Italy. Galileo, then Fibonacci. Why only Italians started the Renaissance movement? And finally, it moved northward to France, Germany, and England. So this document is available from problems in a place called Bakshali, which is now in Pakistan. That manuscript has problems involving trade. That is what happens in just before Shankranti. You would have seen about 15 days back. Everywhere there is cattle fair. So it used to be there everywhere. Particularly the world's most big cattle fair ever is what happens in Pushkar, where the people trade. Those days there was no money, so they would bring camel, buffalo, goat, horse, cow, and exchange. One horse and one buffalo for a camel, or two buffaloes for a horse, that kind of thing. So this is a statement about the problem dealing with animal trade there 2000 years back. And 2200 years back, the famous mathematician Pingala in India had already created the binary system. He did not say 1 and 0, but he said a symbol and absence of a symbol, shunya. Okay. So this binary system today dominates the world. And the idea of Pascal triangle, what is called Pascal triangle today, was known long back to us. We also had an early version of what is called the Fibonacci series now. And you see here, Leibniz, 1900 years later, Leibniz will actually create this representation of binary system with ones and zeros, which today the whole of computer uses, but it was done long before. And Brahmagupta in the year 598 to 668 from Rajasthan actually creates formulas for arithmetic progression. He is the one who used negative numbers for the first time, because till 16th century, Europeans will not be using the negative number. He used negative numbers and including zero for computing. The modern rule that two negative numbers multiplied together equals a positive number first appears in his work. Even more interesting is combination of mathematics in applications like astronomy, where Bhaskaracharya wrote 4 books. The first book on Leelavati is related to arithmetic. The second on Bija Ganita to algebra. The third, Graha Ganit, is celestial mechanics. And Goladhya is conic sections. And not only that, you have trigonometry of compound angles. So whatever trigonometry you use today, 99% of the trigonometry was generated, discovered, invented, and used in India. Maybe 1% of it may have come from outside later, but we were the world leaders in trigonometry for about 1600 years, including compound angles. Today, all of you know Halley's Comet, but last week, when I say last week, 20th June 2025, approximately 6-7 months back, a newspaper item came that there was a discovery done in 456 current area, VD for Europe, which is actually the appearance of what is Halley's Comet. The documentation for this is on a copper plate, which was kept in Sri Shailam temple during the Vijayanagar Empire. This discovery saying that a comet appeared on this year and one village has been given as grant to the priest by Vijayanagar emperor so that he can use the wealth and create neutralization effects. So whenever it appeared, it is said a bad omen. But this is exactly the year where Halley's Comet came. But later in 19th century or late 18th century, Halley discovers that once again, because it comes every 72 years, and put his name on that. So we have a even earlier documentation. Of course, there is a documentation in Baghdad dating to some BC where Halley's Comet has been spotted. Since it comes every 72 years, people have been documenting it, but this is a very good documentation. And this was decoded in Mysore because Mysore has the Archaeological Survey Epigraphy Division, which takes all this and decodes it. So you will see that how the 1 to 9, and the first time you actually see a 0, this document is available in Gwalior. From there it went to and this is an interesting document which converts Hindu numerals to Latin, written in Latin by a famous scientist, mathematician called Fibonacci. So he writes it in Latin, tells the Pope that this numeral system, decimal numeral system, is very advantageous for Europeans to trade with Arabs who were bringing all the goods from India. And eventually, you will see that this also led to calculus. And there was a nice seminar by Professor Divakaran of TIFR. He clearly showed that calculus idea, all the preliminary idea of calculus like limits and continuity and convergence, went from Kerala to Europe. That's how Leibniz and Newton were able to finally craft calculus. Okay. So this is Ramanujan, one of the world's greatest mathematician of all time. His house in Kumbakonam. And he did maths through IKS. And his way of doing was a problem and a solution, problem and a solution. So he had a notebook of about 600 odd problems and solutions. People thought he just did not work, but later we found out that he was very poor. So he could not afford white sheets for working. He would state a problem, do the working either on slate or on using a stick on sand. And once the answer is correct, he would write the answer. So this is the notebook which was lost after his death, later discovered. And people are researching back now, trying to find out what is the working to convert this problem to this answer. And that is done for 40 years in Chicago. And it's called Ramanujan's Notebooks by a famous professor, Bruce Brent. And this is Bruce Brent sitting there in Ramanujan's house. So you have 5 parts. The 6th part is about to finish. With that, the book will get over. And what's interesting with Ramanujan is when he was brought to England and he was down with infection, actually his tuberculosis became very bad. One day while lying in his bed, his mentor, Hardy, came from university to see him. And when he came, he remarked that the weather was very bad. Not only the weather was bad, everything else was bad. And he came by a taxi number which is C1729. He said, even the number is very bad. Ramanujan just kept quiet for about 30-40 seconds and then said, Hardy, I beg to differ. In fact, 1729 is probably the most interesting number in the world because it is the first number which can be expressed as sum of cubes in 2 different ways. 1 cube plus 12 cube and 9 cube plus 10 cube is. Hardy was completely stumped. He had no words to express. And so a new topic in mathematics called taxi numbers got created there. Later, taxi number 3 was done. 4 had to be done using lot of calculation. 5 and all were done using computers. And so after that, Hardy goes back and says, among all the mathematicians in the world on a scale of 100, he puts himself 25, his colleague Littlewood 30, the world's greatest 20th century mathematician, Hilbert, has 80, and he says only Ramanujan is 100 out of 100. So that's really what IKS thinking can do. So the 4th excellence is on medicine, which I think we were substantially ahead of the world. Even today we are. These are tools of surgery from 800 BC to 3000 years back. We had tools like this for surgery, which is all part of the documentation written in by Sushruta Samhita in 800 BC in Varanasi. So very interesting things. Not only that, even more interesting and a Mysore connection for that is how this plastic surgery went from Bombay to England during the year 1792 to 1794. There is a Mysore connection. So this was published in Gentleman's Magazine in London, this article. It's called A Singular Operation. This is a laborer called Kawasji, who was a laborer in the British Army. So when the British Army attacked Srirangpatna, obviously you must know that in a war, almost about 30 to 40% are soldiers. The rest of them are laborers who fetch water, take the injured out, bring new horses, take water, treat people. So many people are there who are not associated directly with fighting. The rule those days was you cannot kill a laborer from either side intentionally. Accidentally, they may die, but you only kill soldiers. So, particularly when the Britishers lost the Second Mysore War, a lot of British soldiers were, even officers were captured and put in the dungeon in Srirangpatna. At the same time, a lot of laborers who were assisting the British army, they were also captured. And the laborers would not be punished and put in dungeon. They would be released. But while releasing, they would do one of the things. They would either cut the tongue, cut the nose, or cut the ear and send them, so that people know that this fellow has betrayed. So this was one fellow whose nose was cut. The British officer who was put in dungeon had seen this fellow without the nose because he was part of their group. But later, after 1 year of treaty and all that, this officers were released back. And when he went back to Pune, which was the cantonment area, he saw the laborer, but he noticed that the laborer has the nose back again. So it was very surprising to him. He asked, "How did you get the nose back? I saw you without the nose in Srirangpatna." So this fellow says, "No, this is a very common operation being done in India for hundreds of years. So they have created a new nose for me and put it." So he asked where. So he took him to some Vaidya in the outskirts of Pune. And that's how this fellow figured out that plastic surgery was being done in India. And he wrote this article in London. And that's how the plastic surgery idea went to Europe. Yeah. So the other interesting thing is on metallurgy, and you have proof that these pillars in Delhi have not rusted for now 2,500 years. They were very special kind of metallurgy. Uh, of course, the iron pillar in Delhi was done by Chandragupta too. But Ashoka's pillar in 300 BC, which he put it in Ambala, was shifted to Delhi by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So that's how you have these two pillars there. Both have not rusted. And this is very interesting because this metallurgy is what has resulted in the famous sword of Tipu Sultan, which was made in Damascus. See, Damascus did not have iron industry, but all these iron ingots and wrought steel and other things were sent by ship and by land sometimes all the way to Damascus. So they would take these iron ingots, reheat it, and make swords, knives, daggers, so all the weapons like America does today. If two countries are fighting today, America sells weapons to both countries. So Syria was doing that. Damascus was world famous for producing all the knives, swords, shields, everything for all armies in the world then. But the steel came from India. So that's how the famous wood steel, WOOTZ, wood steel, was done in India. Very advanced metallurgy. The other excellence is definitely in book and knowledge. One of the oldest book of political economy and public administration. Perhaps the first book which was truly interdisciplinary, unlike books by Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, which has only one subject. It is also the first book of management and statecraft. The author was the world's best practitioner, not somebody who just copies from internet and makes a book. And it is valued on a global scale. It is valued even more today because it is really needed to understand that and see how people like Trump and others are acting. Trump and the Chinese and the Putins and all that. This book is prescribed all over the world, except perhaps in Indian universities. Okay. This is the book. The world's penguin classics, Kautilya's Arthashastra, written 2,500 years back. A book which is so important today and valid. And of course, there's also a Mysore connection because the manuscript of it was found in 1905 in Oriental Research Institute in Mysore, opposite to the Crawford Hall or by the side of the Maharajas and Yuvarajas College. Okay. And very interesting, the librarian then, Shyama Shastri, was a Sanskrit scholar, but he did not get a job as a Sanskrit teacher, but he got a job as a librarian in the Oriental Research Institute. And being a Sanskrit scholar, he did not keep quiet. While arranging the manuscripts, he was also reading, trying to find out what it is. And he accidentally discovered the Arthashastra, which was lost for approximately 1800 years. I mean, lost meaning people did not know where it is. This is, and now today it's an all-time classic. It's probably the first of the great books written out of India. Even more amazing, probably the world's greatest intellectual work is this. One of the oldest books of grammar. 2,500 years back, when most people in the world were not reading and writing correctly, Indians were already perfecting the grammar for languages. It is not only a grammar for one language, it is a complete grammar of all languages in the world. It is critical in developing what one calls today as BNF. For those of you who are in computer science, you will know it's called Backus-Naur form, which is the foundation for all context-free grammar, whereas our languages are context-sensitive grammars. So all context-free grammars are programming languages, and nothing better in any intellectual work in the history of time. This is Panini's Ashtyaadi, done in 350 BC in Gandhara. And it is so great that this is a manuscript and Takshashila where he was working. And these are the various logic system. You will see that the Western logic stopped at 2nd century BC. And it can remain. So therefore, Socrates' logic is still continuing there. Whereas in India, from 4th century BC, all the way to 17th and 18th century AD also, people have been working on logic, continuously refining various schools of logic. You will see some, this is Ashtyaadi, which is 3,959 formula for the perfect grammar in any language. Dr. Leonard Bloomfield, American linguist, called it the greatest monument of human intelligence. The reason is very clear. If you ask anybody in the West with a Western knowledge, they will say the world's greatest work is E equal to mc squared. Einstein's result, no doubt it's great. But what resulted from that is that you have atom bomb now, and Kim Jong also has atom bombs. So everybody is worried about Kim Jong and his atom bomb. We are worried about Pakistan's atom bomb. Pakistan is worried about our atom bomb. This is what has happened. Whereas what Panini did, he developed and perfected. There is no improvement possible now. It is perfect for the last 2,600 years, where it is a grammar which finally told people whether they were talking correctly or not, whether they were writing correctly or not, whether they were composing things correctly or not, and if it was wrong, why it is wrong, how to correct it. Without a grammar, no language and communication is correct all over the world in all languages. I think there is, in fact, even next 100 years, I can easily tell, nobody can do better work than this in history of time. There is only one work left. Somebody must invent a tablet by which everybody can remain immortal. You can take the tablet and you don't die. That is the only thing greater than this. And very interesting, Noam Chomsky, who's currently the world's greatest linguist, he had something better to say. He didn't say to me, but he said to my friend. So he went to work with Chomsky in MIT. Chomsky said, "You are from India." He said, "Yes." He asked, "Why do you want to come to us? You know Panini. What Panini did 2,500 years back, our department with 40 faculty for the last 100 years has not done 1/10 of that. Don't waste your time with us." This is exactly what Noam Chomsky is. And our people think some idiot somewhere who got a Nobel Prize is great. Nobody talks about Panini because it is a sense of shame for them to talk about Panini. In fact, they don't even know how great it is. Beyond reading and writing, beyond Ayurveda, they also developed excellence, which is independent of any knowledge system. So even an illiterate person can enjoy excellence. It is universal good and one of the most important to human life everywhere, even with the Westerners and Arabs. It is a preventive medicine and has significant therapeutic value. The only person who will not value this is a fool. It is the greatest good done to human well-being from any knowledge system. Well-being at zero cost, no collateral damage, non-institutional, it has no dogma. It's now the best brand of IKS the world over. But don't get disturbed. This is yoga. And one of the yogas is what you get more familiar with, asana, and now more popular pranayama. There are other things also. And this is at least 4,000 years old, meditation and pranayama, well documented. And most interesting, the man who made asanas and hatha yoga, as it's called, popular all over the world, is again from Mysore. This is a man, B.K. Saingar. Of course, he lived most of his life in Pune, but what is more interesting is the man who made B.K. Saingar learn all this is this gentleman, Krishnamacharya, who died in 1989. He is actually the father of modern yoga. He is from Parkad Mata, which is just by the side of Jagannath Palace in Mysore. What is interesting is around 1920, just after World War I, Krishnamacharya went along with Mysore Maharaja Nalvadi Krishraj Vadeyar on a pilgrimage to Manasarovar, Kailas Manasarovar. For those of you who are familiar or aware, there are caves below the Mount Kailas. Everybody goes to Manasarovar and comes back. Very few go up to Kailas. At the foothills of Kailas, there are caves where Buddhist monks even now live. Apparently, about 1,500 years back, along with Buddhism, these yoga practices went to Buddhists there in Tibet. So they learned all this Hatha Yoga. They preserved it. When this man went there, few of the monks made a very interesting request. They asked him whether he can stay back for 2-3 years with them and learn all the yoga back, because this yoga knowledge was lost in India thanks to 1,000 years of Islamic rule and about 250 years of British rule. They said, we owe a gratitude to India and we want to restore this knowledge. We have preserved it because it has not been disturbed with us in all these years. We know it is disturbed in India. Can you take it back? So with that request, Krishnamacharya was around 18 to 20 years old then. He stayed back, whereas the Maharaja came back to Mysore to continue his governance. He stayed there for 2-3 years, learned all the asanas and yogic practices which was lost in India. came back and started a yoga school in Mysore. And his first disciple was B.K. Saingar, who took yoga to the rest of the world. And you see who practices yoga every day. The next excellence is on university education, where we now have perhaps some of the world's worst universities. Okay. It was not like that. We had exceedingly good university system, which also had equity apart from quality, because it had both quality. After all, if people like Panini and Chanakya teach, what more do you want? You want a local political science professor to teach you garbage? Okay. And it was relevant. Whatever was taught had employment immediately, unlike our knowledge now. It was equity because people who were poor, who could not afford to pay fees, Guru Dakshana, they were given the option to work, and the same class by the same teacher would be repeated in the evening for them free of cost. So equity was there, quality was there. Today you neither have equity nor quality. In the name of equity, you have no quality. And if there is no quality, there is neither relevance nor opportunity. So it grew till 12th century and so slowly declined and disappeared because of the Arabic knowledge system. And you see others, we only started in our university in 1916 in BHU. Then the first in Western world was University of Bologna in 12, Oxford in 13, Harvard only in 17th. World's first university was established in Takshashila. You see, when the men of Alexander the Great came to Takshashila in India in the 4th century BC, they found a university, the like of which had not been seen in Greece, a university which taught the 3 Vedas and 18th accomplishments, and was still existing when Chinese pilgrim Fahian visited there in 400 AD. So about 700 years unchallenged. And see so many universities, Ratnagiri, Vikramshila, Jagdale, Somapura, Odantapure, Pushpagiri, Nalanda, Takshashila, Vallabh, Bikrampur. India was the only country to have university education in ancient time. That is the reason they were all shattered by the Arabs. And 7 of these universities was done in Bihar, Bengal area by the Pala kings, who were very keen on university education. They had Nalanda before, they had Takshashila even before, but others were established very quickly and continued for about 400-500 years. Even in South India, Kanchipuram was a place for learning where all the children of various empires, kingdoms would send their children there for studies. And you can see that Roman trade that I showed, and people from North Africa coming. This is Ibn Battuta, who came all the way. He spent 6 months in Mangalore. What is interesting is this. The Fibonacci I mentioned, he was born in Italy and ended in Italy. He spent his younger years in North Africa, in Morocco. His father was a trader. He would trade with the Arabs. Arabs would trade by bringing all the goods from India. And Arabs between themselves would calculate in Arabic numeral, which is a Hindu numeral turned into Persian. So Fibonacci was here with his father, and he was observing all the time as a young boy that these Arabs talk and write in some other way and convey the message in Latin to the Europeans for trade. And the Roman numerals, all of you know. Try dividing Roman numeral 47 by 7. You will see how division is difficult, impossible almost. Multiplication is even worse. You can only do multiplication through repeated addition and stuff like that. Decimal is unheard of. Fractions is unheard of. But these people were quickly doing decimals and fractions. And then he somehow, after a couple of years, he got convinced that Arabic calculation is superior to European calculation, which was the Roman calculation. So he learned Persian. He learned Persian, converted Persian calculations with numerals to Latin, took that book, as I showed you earlier, a page of that, took that book to Pope and told the Pope, I have seen all this. This is very useful for European traders. Please take a look at this and see what it can be done. So Pope constituted a committee. That committee explored for about 2.5 years the effect of doing business with decimal system. He was convinced. Then, as usual, they are so powerful, he passed out a decree that saying that all Europeans who trade with Arabs will trade with decimal system. That's how the decimal system went to Europe. Fibonacci became very famous. And in fact, Newton acknowledges Fibonacci and Galileo very strongly. So that's how numerals went, and this Madhava school of Kerala went to give Newton and Leibniz the idea of calculus. Why the Western knowledge system dominates is because of this. You see here, this is a conference in 1927. It's an academic conference where these are the people. What is our academic conference? Our academic event, the main person sitting will be an idiot who is called Vice Chancellor. Around him will be 2-3 other idiots. Then it will be filled with jokers who have come there for food and entertainment. They have not come for academic. And all this is covered by UGC grant, travel grant. Whereas here, they have all come on their own. There is no hotel booking, nothing. They were all staying with friends and all. They all came because they wanted to discuss what is happening to physics, chemistry, and mathematics. This is the Solvay conference of 1927. And not only that, in the conference here, 19 people already were Nobel laureates, and another 6 or 7 will get Nobel Prize later. Today, like Trump receiving somebody else's Nobel Prize, our academicians also will need a Xerox copy of the Nobel Prize. This is our academics. See, Western knowledge dominates because they are serious. We are not serious with anything. We are not serious with Western knowledge. We are not serious with Indian knowledge. We are only serious with fooling around, cheating, and this is what has happened. And one of the highest cheating is in academics. 99% of the thesis in India, 99% of the publication in India is all fake. In another few months, it will reach 99.99%. This is what has happened. So, lot of wealth has been generated because of Western knowledge, but the problem persists. You see the modern world. We live in a strange world where the poor walk miles to get food and the rich walk miles to digest the food. This is it. We now have more problems of prosperity. Look at your college or your university. What is the biggest problem there? The biggest problem is not lack of knowledge because that is already gone. Biggest problem is parking space. Because every faculty has a car, students now have a car, no parking space. That is the problem. No, teachers also complain that there is no parking space. No teacher will complain that there are no good scholars in the campus. This is what is happening. Okay? Somebody who understood things very well is Kurian, the man who made Amul. So Kurian was given the task to revamp the milk industry in India, but he did something very interesting. Why did it start in Anand? What is Amul today? He had noticed that people in the Taluka of Anand, predominantly in Gujarat and Rajasthan, have a very good dairy culture for last 3,000 years, starting from Indus Valley, because we now have terracotta remains of conical shaped terracotta products with perforation, which could be hung from the roof. These are all tools used to make paneer. So when you're done with milk, milk has a very short shelf life. So you convert it into paneer, which lasts a little longer. So Indus Valley civilization had it. So he observed that and he said, okay, they are doing very well. I will not disturb them. I will make improvement to them. And this is how he made the improvement. See, he understood the local thing very well. He made the input. He did perfect blending. 80% Indian knowledge system. And only 20% he brought Western technology. Just what is needed to pasteurize so that you can increase the shelf life. How to diversify into numerous products, not just milk, butter, and ghee and paneer. You now have about 200 different brands from Amul and marketing strategy all over the world. And today, 2024, Amul is the world's top food brand, not McDonald's and Domino's and all that garbage that we see. Amul has been named the world's strongest food brand in Brand Finance Global Food and Drinks Report with a brand strength of 91 out of 100. Very difficult. And you see the revenue. Revenue today is about, this is early slide. So today's revenue is about $4 billion. Approximately about 32,000 crores is the revenue of Amul. Very sad. He should have been given the Nobel Prize not Nobel Prize, but at least Bharat Ratna instead of people like Sachin Tendulkar and all that. See, our priority is not good work. Our priority has become entertainment, cheap entertainment. So, indigenous knowledge and native knowledge is very, very useful. Come to that. You see here, this is an interesting figure of archer. The archer is drawing the bow and arrow with a leg, even though the hands are there. This is the 4th century BC Greek way. So it's 2,600 years back. Somebody sketched this, which means they would have seen it. This is not out of imagination. These are indigenous knowledge. Very nice. But does this knowledge exist? Look at this. In 2016, there is equivalent of Olympic Games called the World Nomad Games. And in Kyrgyzstan, this girl, can regular Olympic archers even try anything like this? This is 100 times more difficult than modern Olympics. So don't disown indigenous knowledge. They are very, very strong. They have been time tested. They may not look fancy. They may be out of context, but they are very valid. Okay, we saw so much of knowledge system. We'll see whether knowledge systems have actually worked. What is the state of the poor? The poor just work and remain poor. What does the rich do? Exploit the poor, like you see what is happening in India today. What does the soldier do? He has to protect both rich and poor as long as they're citizens of the country. What does the taxpayer do? He has to pay for all these three people. What does the banker do? He robs all four, meaning banking is a passive income. Bank people keep your money, live on it, and give less in return to you. More interesting is lawyer. He will mislead all five to make money. Doctor is even better. All the 6 category of people fall sick, so he will charge them. Gundas are even better. They will scare all the 7 and live. But even better is a politician who lives happily on account of all 8. This is exactly how most countries are living. Today's the best example, of course, is Trump. Okay. no better are our leaders. But what is interesting and surprising is this situation is actually the situation in 43 BC in Rome. This is what a nice senator, a contemporary of Caesar, Marcus Cicero told. See, this is the state of your country. This is exactly what he addressed in the Senate and told, this is exactly what is happening in our country now. Are you not ashamed? Why don't you stop fighting and do something for people? This is exactly what the senator in 43 is no different today. No, in 2000 years, all knowledge systems have done this. Only few individuals have helped themselves, and all institutions have grown very heavily too. So I will stop now. We have references. I have given one set of standard reference, but to understand better, I think there are two books which you must read. This is the first book. There is a book, one of the greatest book written in the last 200 years. It is a book which has sold some 72 million copies or something. It has been translated to some 60, 70 languages. And it is written by this gentleman who also comes to India 2 months a week, or 2 months a year. He spends time in Nasik, in Igatpuri, in the Vipassana Meditation Center. And he says it's Vipassana meditation, which is the meditation technique which Buddha taught his disciples. He said that meditation technique has helped him think very clearly and write a book like this. So even if you don't read your textbooks and research article, most of it is junk. Please don't miss this. Buy this book and read. This is one. And for Indian knowledge, this is about humanity and the world. This is about India and IKS, an amazing book. It's called The Golden Road, which says how the trade for 1500 years in the world happened, and India was the center for this trade. Okay. Beautiful book, and there are a lot of YouTube lectures by William on various chapters of his book. It's very good, very good, very good reading, very insightful. And this photo of Roman gold coins in India, I took it from his book. Okay. Yeah. So let's close here. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to discuss. We have another 10-15 minutes time.
One question is there. That is, iron pillar is made up with what type of